What's up? We're Beauty School Dropout, and you're listening to Punkvideosrock.
And watching it.
What's up, guys? Rob here, Punkvideosrock. I am reunited with the boys here. How's it going?
It's been going great, man. We just got back from Warped Tour. I think we're all a little tired and spicy, but we feel good.
What was it like? What was Warped Tour like? It's a comeback, 30-year anniversary. I mean, I grew up with Warped Tour. I'm sure you guys did as well in different capacities. But, you know, what was it like being on those stages?
Oh, man, it's an honor. It's an honor, for real. I mean, to be with so many bands that I think we all grew up on top of being able to be a band in the mix is just insane. Insane.
What about, like, performing live and getting this new audience, new attention? I feel like this is, like, the perfect type of fans that you want to perform to. So, you know, the day of the show, like, what was that vibe like for you guys?
That was the most crowd surfers we've ever had, bro. I think the Warped Tour crowd gets the memo on like moshing and crowd surfing.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a single moment during our set that someone wasn't up crowd surfing.
You know, I was actually surprised by is how many like young women were crowd surfing.
Yeah.
Normally I feel like it's like the big, bulky like dudes leading the pit. It was mostly just like the entire time it was like there's like these like girls just ripping it and like just shredding on these dudes. I'm like, this is so lit.
And it's cool because it's like, you know, we haven't had this in so long, so I feel like everybody was just ready to give it their all.
Oh yeah, they went in. They got the memo.
It's cool to see that the alt crowd is so alive and well. You know?
Yeah.
I think as a band we've kind of, I don't want to say we've struggled to find our place and like where we stand and all of that, but I think we've always been kind of like an ambiguous sound.
Yeah.
You know, we've always had more pop sounding records with harder hitting shows, and I think people struggle to figure out like where in the whole alt spectrum do we land. And so I think to have Warped Tour come back and to be put in front of an audience that is looking for that kind of energy from shows, oh my god, it was insane.
Exactly. And at the same time, you got to debut new music during this performance. So
Absolutely.
Like, what was that vibe like, being able to kind of, I guess in a sense, you got to test it out with this new audience, because it's people that knew of you and people that have probably never heard of you guys. So like, what was that like, being able to perform Fever and the new music?
It's badass, man. I think we're all just excited to be playing the new stuff, really.
Yeah.
It's cool being able to play the throwback still, but we've toured it for so long that I think we're just eager to get this new music in people's ears and just really play as much of it as we can.
Yeah. I want to dive in and talk about this upcoming album. I can't believe it's like officially the debut. I feel like you guys have been just dropping music from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that, you know, the debut album is finally here, but I feel like it's not something that is like easy for you guys to say, hey, it's time for that album. What really went, like what kind of conversations or like what was the process of getting to this point in your career that you felt like now is the time to release this debut album?
I think that we've had a lot of decisions creatively be persuaded by what we thought would be the best for, like, I don't know how to put this, but I think just in the age of TikTok and social media and all these things, I feel like we've in the past had moments where we've been persuaded on what we think would work versus what we truly believe is like us. And I think going into this album, we really were decisive about being like, okay, let's really think this through, work out all the kinks, and just try and do something that is as transparently us as a group as possible.
Yeah.
And just be raw and upfront and forward. Like, there's no features on the album as of now. We'll probably, you know, remix and re-release things and do that later on. But, you know, we just wanted to make a statement like, hey, this is us. This is the first true, like, long-form body of work that's meant to be an experience all the way through, from the way that it's listened to the way that it's going to be performed at shows, to all of it. And so I think that was the big factor going into it.
I love the fact that you also got to step away from the production. You got to be the artist and focus on being the artist on this album. You brought in Neal Avron, which is a freaking legend in this industry.
Absolutely.
You know, what was it like being able to step away from that to step away from the production side and just like being able to just focus on the music, on the lyrics, on the performance?
I feel like that's a Barty answer, because he's always been the savant with production for us. Like we understand it, but I think like in terms of the actual producer role, he usually carries the weight on a lot of that. And so I don't know.
How do you feel, Bardo?
It was fun. It was very, I think, cathartic in a lot of ways. And it was a very slow process that we needed to do, you know? we're used to like very fast-paced production stuff, and I think this is cool to like have like a very slow. You got to like very like marinate in every single song.
Yeah.
Which is really rad.
Did you feel at any point like any type of ego coming out because you wanted to step in and be a producer at the same time?
Yes.
How did you control that?
I don't know. I just did sometimes, and sometimes I didn't. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'll say what I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but Neil's a legend. Like, I respect him, and he respects me, and it was just kind of fun, like just going through the process.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like it tested all of our patience in a lot of ways. You know, we, like he said, we've just gotten so accustomed to how fast you can turn things around with modern technology, and just like his wit and ability to be able to do that. And so I think this project was a big challenge for us to have to just like really, marinate with the sounds and be okay with the fact that it's gonna like we're perfecting it. You know, we're like making a marble sculpture.
Yeah.
Rather than.
I feel like at the same time though, it's like every time you guys have created something, I feel like you've been on the road. You've been creating while on tour. You've been creating like when you've been home for a couple of days rather than like focusing on it. And now that, you know, Neil stepped in, I feel like there was more time to be able to just like focus, like you guys mentioned, focus on the music, focus on the writing. What was it like for you guys? Because like now you have this extra time. Like, how did you know that these songs were done and ready to go on to the next phase?
Well, we took a year to like write everything.
Shit.
We like it was out of necessity. I think
That's luxury though.
Yeah, well, we did it very intentionally. Like we were so burnt out. I
Yeah.
think from trying to tour and write and be creative in double capacity. So we're like, we're gonna take a year off to write like 100 songs.
Yeah.
And then the 14 kind of showed themselves, and then bringing Neil in, working with him for a few months, it was just like, like it just felt right. Like it felt like this is how a band is supposed to make an album.
Did you guys find yourselves doing a lot of live recording this time around? Did anything change in that aspect?
I think everything changed because
Yeah.
we actually had to like decipher our parts, because we had Neil like be like, you can do that better, or what if we tried this, or like there was just so much more attention to detail because of who he is and like what he's done. Like he is an album producer.
Yeah.
He knows how to make a body of work.
And we had to like be really intentional about every sound, because you're like, you spend so much longer on every sound. Nowadays you can just like put a plug-in on and you have instant guitar, you know. But like what's trippy is like we're using all the sounds that we would like normally just do on a computer. Those are we're using the real units for.
Yeah.
And it's like you're also pigeonholed where like you don't want to up because like you spent an hour dialing that tone,
Right.
and you're like, okay, now you have the part. And then you're like, you can't be like, can we change that sound you just recorded for, you know? So it's a whole, you think about it differently. It's a trip, you know?
I think the coolest part to add to that, was that we had like less to work with because we were using like all analog stuff.
Okay.
Like when you have a laptop, you have unlimited choices.
That's true.
Like there's infinite amps on your laptop. But now when we have like 4 heads and 2 cabs to choose from, and like we very intentionally use like 3 guitars and 1 bass across the whole album, like limitation and putting yourself in a box, I think allows you to be more creative with what you got.
Also, Neil's just such an amazing mixer. He's the type of producer that like mixes his own shit too, which is like that's not always the case. Usually it's like producer and then it gets sent off to mix. But we're used to very much like at the end of the day, this song just kind of has like almost like a radio ready sound.
Yeah.
And he is so like, dude, when we first got we wrapped the first singles, right? The first like group of 5 songs, I think we were all kind of like we just heard the day in the room mixes, and it's just like nothing was edited, and we're like, oh my god, like what do we hear ourselves into? And then we get this like folders in the back, and it's just like, holy shit, that's Neil.
Yeah.
Like he is so fucking good. It's insane.
How impactful was it, like the drums, for example? Because like, you know, before you probably had to be delicate when and where you were going to record your drums, but I feel like now you have the space to record it whenever you want, right? Like how different was that, and how did it impact the creative process for you, but also like the recording process?
Yeah, that's cool. I kind of came in like a later phase of the album process, and Neil is just really unique in a way that I've never worked on drums on an album the way that he does them. He's just like, he's so old school and wise, and just has so many cool little, you know, tricks up his sleeve.
Yeah.
Every day that we'd pull up, we just tackled another song and took our time with it. So it was cool just to be delicate with the process, for sure.
Neil puts a really heavy emphasis on takes.
Yeah.
like you are playing until you get
Yeah.
a good
take after take after take.
Even with vocals, that was a huge challenge for me because
Yeah.
it was like there was no, I mean, for the most part, he was really not having a chain or like tune or anything on it. So it was like if I was doing a bad take, you knew it was a bad take. But if I'd got a great take, that's where it shines through. Because you're like, oh, if that's excellent as is, then cool, dress it up however you want. It's only going to get better from there.
I was just gonna add, it's so sick to have him on the other side of your ears. You know, when you're playing, you do a take, even if it's a bad take, it's just whatever he has to say. It's like I'm looking forward to it. You know.
Yeah.
He's so funny because I mean, we knew going into the process, like there were the obvious cuts that we had heard that he had done, but it was such a funny couple of months working with him because it was like I swear daily a song would come up and he'd be like, oh, I remember doing that. You're like, bro, what? Oh my God. Like you've done everything.
I think he wrote Happy Birthday.
Yeah, truly.
Shit.
And the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he really is so goated, like has his hands on everything that was important in this genre, I think, to some extent.
I want to dive in more with your vocals because this band is where you pretty much started singing.
Yeah.
So how do you feel now as a vocalist, and how do you feel, or how did you feel during that experience with Neal, since he was pushing you so much?
First off, A+ for memory. That's a good. I like that you know that. It was challenging at first, for sure. I think in a lot of ways I became grateful because it really pushed me to get better at using my voice, and also that was a big part of this album, was exploring different ways to use my voice, because after our touring year with Blink and Jaden and all that, I discovered that I had a nodule. So I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know, just scared me into being like, okay, I have to sing different, or I have to figure out what to do. And I think between figuring out those characteristics and having someone who's really just pushing me to be like as good as a raw performer as possible, really, that was equally as exciting as it was challenging.
Did that impact your songwriting as well, because maybe you were having to sing differently because of that?
In some ways, finding the characteristics, yes, but in terms of working with Neal, like we came in with him after all those songs were written for the most part.
Okay.
And he came in and helped with a lot of the rearrangement and kind of fine-tuning on things, but I'd say up until that point, the bigger thing was these boys really just pushing me, and Jason too. Jason Butler from Let Live, he executive produced a lot of this record with us, and he's
definitely the fifth member.
Yeah, he's the silent Beatle for sure. But they just pushed me to really try and challenge myself on like what I could achieve, and finding new tones and just different ways to use my voice. And I think that was a really, really instrumental part of finding the sound of this record.
What was the writing process like though? Like what kickstarted these songs? Was it an idea that you had, a melody that you had? Like I know the last time we spoke, like you were ready to go to Hawaii to go songwriting. So like did that actually happen? Like were you able to just focus on that and just be away from, the world for a moment?
Yes and no. I mean, we write and produce outside of this as our profession. So it's kind of just like when we get back home from touring and we get in that mode of getting into the studio again, whether it's for us or for other people, I think we just get into a rhythm where we're writing every day. And it was kind of, that was the workflow. I mean, we just had sessions daily.
I think a cool thing though with Fever is what like really started this album.
Yeah.
You know.
That is so catchy though. Like it's stuck in my head like from the very beginning. It's like
thank you. That's
repeat.
The goal. We went up north to Northern California and like did a week and a half of just like writing, and I think that was like where we really like we just sank our teeth in for like a week and a half or 2 weeks, and just like Fever was the only song that actually came out of that period. But I feel like it was our discovery period of like what do we want to do. We were watching like documentaries, like Meet Me in the Bathroom documentary. I think also like really impacted us for this record. We were just like seeing like the New York scene coming up with like the Strokes and all them, like watching how they navigate. We're like, we want to do that, but the BSD style.
I can kind of see that with the guitars on Fever.
Yeah, I think that we pulled influences from a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
like Killers was a very heavy influence, and The Cure. And
when we were writing, one of the things we were trying to do was like prevent ourselves from over putting guitars on.
Yeah.
And just like if there's only gonna be the four of us on stage, max there can be two guitars playing at any given time.
Yeah.
Or one guitar or two guitars, one bass, drums, vocals, and backing vocals. But just limiting ourselves to that and then adding synths in after, and that was a fun challenge. Kind of like then what happened with the Neal thing of like the analog, obstacles making opportunities.
Yeah.
It was really cool to like challenge ourselves. I actually would encourage artists to do that more often. Is like, what can you do with less?
It makes your parts better.
I feel like, yeah, you're more focused on playing it, right? Like making sure that it's playing right.
Yeah.
But I was also going to ask because it is more of an analog approach. Is that why the sound of the guitars sound the way that they do versus, the way that it sounded in previous records from you guys?
Yeah,
Definitely.
and also just real ass amps. We're like using vintage Marshalls, and that's all the real. That's as real as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
So that's definitely plays into it.
I feel like these records, you can almost feel the air pushing.
That's cool.
I don't know. It's kind of funny because I feel like we've always been just like, oh, you can't really tell, but it's like, I think it really just comes down to the way that it's mixed, and somehow Neil achieved being. That was the first time I feel like I've been like, oh, okay, I get it.
Well, rock is very clean these days. It's very quantized.
Yeah.
Very
Perfect.
yeah, it's headed to be perfect. I think the last 5 years that's kind of been the style and been the very popular meta for rock.
Mhm.
And I think it's cool actually to like someone asked us today, like, what sets this album apart? Like, I think because it's kind of like shitty. I'm just kidding. It's not shitty. It's but like there is a level of intentional shittiness involved. Like, I say that with all seriousness, like
Rawness.
Yeah,
rawness.
I prefer
guess.
rawness.
Yeah, shittiness. I don't know, whatever. But it's like, I think that is what we all love. You listen to the old Sex Pistols, The Clash, like they kept shit in there because it was like, no, this is real. Like, and I think that's like reimagining what that sounds like. The raw, like this feels like a band. It feels like, and I think that's something we were after day one. And I think it was so cool to like that we kept that in. And Neil's so down for that. And he's just like, yeah, let's make it you guys and raw, but it still sounds like very loud and in your face, and it's so cool.
And it makes sense to sound that way just because like your live show is crazy, so you don't want it to sound so perfect while you guys are jumping and
exactly
crowd surfing and doing all that.
Yeah definitely.
I think this is the first time that our music translates to how we play it live.
Raw, not shitty.
That was a huge motif going into this album too, I guess. And it's funny because we haven't really talked too much about that yet, but it's like after the touring year that we had, I think it really made us realize we want to lean into songs that we're comfortable playing live or want to play live for the rest of our lives versus just maybe what would be like the pop banger or radio or whatever.
And that's a good point too, though, because last time we spoke, I feel like that was the year that you guys were nonstop. I think that was the first portion of that Blink tour. And you guys were pretty much on the road the entire time. So you got to experience not only like different audiences, but it was like, now it's like stadiums. Now it's like different types of venues. And then you had last year, which I feel like that's the year that you got to focus on this record. So how did those experiences kind of impact that process of the album? Just because now you envision like a freaking stadium rather than just like chain reaction.
I think getting a taste of being arena boys made us even more hungry for being arena boys.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I'm sure, a very vastly different experience when you're just like the first of 3 throw and go that's being given a massive opportunity versus like being able to dominate the whole audience. But I think even being in such a space so early on in our touring careers really made us hungry to be like, okay, how do we make records that cater to that, at least on a performance level, where it's like everyone, whether it's in a club, whether it's in a room like this or in an arena, it just sounds big and exciting and like raw, I guess.
I think Mark said it, but he's like, if you want to play stadiums, you got to make stadium music. And I was like,
I mean, he's got a point.
So we were like, let's make some stadium rock bangers.
Where do you guys feel like you felt challenged during this album?
Oh, time. Having time. I think like by the time we got in with Neil, like we were working 5 days a week, 11 to 8, which feels like that's like it turned into a job. Yeah. A very, very fun job, but when you're doing 11 to 8 every single day and you wake up at 10:30, there's not a lot of time to do
30
other
minutes
things.
for traffic.
Yeah, right. So like I think like just managing our time and doing other things like and keeping our head on straight throughout the process, because like everyone said, it is a slow process and you're really like dissecting your art. Yeah. With other people now too, like that are diving into, so everyone is just so head deep into it, like that, like making sure the rest of your life doesn't like crumble. Well, I think was my struggle, and I think you and I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, it's a delicate thing, man. I feel like especially there's a fine line of being home for so long, because I think going from, like you said, touring so much and the excitement and the inertia that comes with that to all of a sudden, and this is something, you know, it's not unique to us. I feel like every artist deals with this, but coming home to the silence. Yeah. And when that silence is deafening sometimes, and you're just like, what am I even doing? Yeah, I still feel like that sometimes. Even as we're getting this whole album launched or getting everything off the ground, it's just such a. But that's the risk. That's the risk you take as an artist, going and shooting the shot. So I think that's equally as exciting as it is scary.
But how do you guys cope with that? You know, especially now that like the band is getting more and more traction, there's more exposure happening. So I feel like that silence gets even louder nowadays when you guys come home. So, you know, collectively, how do you guys kind of check in on each other just to make sure that that silence is just that, and that, you know, it's not affecting you guys, you know, more than that?
I think it's a work in progress. We're constantly learning how to be better communicators with each other. And I think also as we get older and the times change and we change, you know, it's like I was just telling my girl this the other night. I was like, I'm not like 20 and homeless anymore, and I can't just like go roam around the beach and like not worry about bills, and you know, it's like we're all adults now. So I think a lot of it is just having like proper regiments and routines, and like really just trying to be there for each other through whatever we're going through.
And if we're being honest, it does affect us. I think we do have to like check ourselves and each other, like, because like we all have our moments where we're just like slumped.
That's rough. That's rough. I can't imagine like what it's like, you know, having an experience like Warped Tour, like a full-blown tour where you're like 60,000 whatever fans every single night for like a month or two,
and then you go home and your tire's flat and you gotta pay for it, and you're like,
exactly.
Shit. Great.
At the same time, you were mentioning, you know, now there's bills, now there's homes, now there's like things you have to take care of. Like, do you feel like that adds more pressure in the process of like creating the music now?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was thinking about that this morning. I think that's something that's not talked about often enough. You know, it's like as you scale in life, and as you know, want more or get more, even, it's like at a certain point, if you want to maintain that, there's certain decisions you have to, or certain levels of like income you have to make to be able to actually cater to the lifestyle that you've now adopted or created for yourself. Right. And I think a lot of people just disregard that completely. At least from like a consumer standpoint, and so there's like this prejudice or this judgment around like the way people develop themselves as artists or the decisions that they make creatively. But it's like at the end of the day, we're all just trying to survive, and we're all just trying to be humans, and like we got mouths to feed, we got friends and family just like you, and you know, even the biggest pop stars in the world, it's like you see them crashing out, but no one's talking about the fact that it's like, think about like, you know, I don't know, a good example, but just like mega pop stars, like their monthly bills or things that they have to cater to between family and friends. It's a lot, you know. And music is not the most favorable industry for anyone, really. So it's an interesting conundrum we live in. But at the same time, I feel like being able to have the community that we have, friends and fans alike, and to be able to perform music and meet all those people and just like celebrate the winnings of that is what makes it all worth it, for sure.
I want to dive back on this album, and you know, I'm curious, like during this whole process, like what did this process teach you about whether it was yourselves individually as artists, or maybe even as just human, but like also as a band? You know, what did you learn about, you know, Beauty School Dropout?
I think the biggest thing is just we threw our whole selves into this. Like I feel like it's the first time like we actually just like really gave it our everything. Wow. Like we cried, we celebrated, there was like every emotion through the whole last year and a half. But like I don't think I've ever put so much effort into anything in my life, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say that. It's just like we've put all of our eggs in this basket, and there's no eggs left. Like we're like we're literally like this is our
put all your butterflies in the basket.
Let's all the butterflies are in the basket, and that is where they went. Now you have to go find them. But it's like we said it the other day, it's like this is our kid, and we have now 14 kids, our songs, and we're just like hoping that they find their people and that they're received well, and that our fans and people that don't know about us love them as much as we do, because we're really proud of what we made.
What about for you, Bardo, as far as like being able to work with someone like Neal? How did that impact you as a producer for everything else that you work on?
Yeah, it was an honor. Honestly, I learned a lot from him, and like just being able to really honestly slow down. He taught me like a lot of patience, and just like it's so easy to overthink a lot of things, and he was just pretty good at like just like I don't know, like critical listening, I guess. It's kind of hard to like derive it into like one sentence of like what you learned. It's kind of you just like pick up on a lot of stuff for 3 months, but it was also kind of fun to like get to show him stuff. He was always like very impressed with my like synth abilities and like how quickly I could like do stuff. And I had to like, it's kind of like production sessions these days are so sink or swim. Like if you're just doing random sessions with people, like you need to be fast. You have to be fast. Otherwise, like you might as well just stop. Yeah. You know, and so I've gotten really, really fast at making songs. But then what the other side of that with Neal is like he's from a different era, which is like focusing on the patience of like he may not even write all the songs. He comes in just like, cool, these are the songs. This is what we're like working on. And so it was just cool to get to I don't know, like honestly like show him the fastness, and he was like, how are you even doing, like he'd send me a little side quest and I'd go out in the garden and just like make something on my laptop speakers, and I'd come back and he's like, what? Dude, like, and I'm like, I don't know, like, but then equally I'm just like, dude, what you're doing is such a different level. So it's really fun to like, I don't know, I'm just trying to be him. I'm like, in 20 years he eats a lot of chocolate. I want to eat a lot of chocolate. You know what I mean?
Makes sourdough bread.
He makes sourdough bread.
Oh, nice.
So good.
He's got a sick ass little crib studio.
He makes focaccia too.
Focaccia. Yeah, that was actually we haven't talked about this enough. Him and his
Golden.
wife would cook for us every day. And that was the whole thing. It really felt like summer camp. And oh my God, my girlfriend's gonna beat my ass for saying this, but that is such good cooking. Like, holy shit. Sadie, you're good at cook too, don't worry. But like, holy shit. Like, dude, it was every day you walk out. Cause like, I feel like we've always been used to just like hungry as hell in studios. Like, I'll Postmate some like Chipotle or whatever. And this like home cooked meals every day. Like, dude, they just like blessed us so hard. It was so cool.
That's full service.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's awesome. Cole, bouncing back to you, did you discover like any new vocal characteristics with your voice this time around?
For sure. I think I leaned a lot into lower registers than I was used to, or at least that I had played with in the past. Like, I mean, if you listen to all of our past records, oftentimes they were pushing beyond or higher than where my range would even go. And that was part of the problem, was like between that and also just being the way that I am on stage, which is very like aggressive moving, I guess. It just was not helping anything for myself and in terms of like longevity with my voice. And so I think that was a big learning curve, was just like figuring out how to do things that were exciting to hear with completely different attitudes or with different ranges of my voice.
I think you can hear like a taste of like the new Cole in Fever.
Well, you can. That's why I was asking, because I feel like a new demon came out of you.
We have a name for that demon. His name is Pelvis. Whenever we wanted to get Coley in that, we would say, channel your inner Pelvis. It's Punk Elvis.
That was the thing. It was Pelvis every single time. That was like, because I think there is something in the past that's been a challenge, is like how to properly communicate what we're trying to evoke, I guess, from my voice. And sometimes I'd just like be like, I don't even know what to make of what you're saying. Whereas like when we discovered certain qualities and that became the name for it, it was like, all right, the second that was brought up, is like I knew where to go or where to take it.
I feel like you really discovered yourself as a vocalist on this record. I think, or at least so far on these 2 songs that you've released.
For sure. I think we've all discovered a lot about ourselves on this album. Yeah, for sure.
I'm still just as bad at bass. But Bardo, I will say, Master Shredder over here has been learning some Led
Zeppelin. I'm the best guitar player in the world now. After this album, I was terrible, and now I got really good.
He learned a Led Zeppelin riff.
I know Black Dog by Led Zeppelin now.
I swear he learned that though, and then he sends us a video of him like tapping, and I was like, "What the hell? When did he become Van Halen?"
All it took is me learning one riff, the minor pentatonic scale. I think that's the scale. I don't actually know, but
It's Bardo Van Halen.
Yeah, Bardo Van Halen.
Full on experience.
I've been watching John Mayer videos, and I just
Bardo Avron. Awesome.
Well, I'm excited for this album to drop September 5th. Where did all the mangoes? Where did all the mangoes?
Where did
go?
Dude, that's
honestly though, where did the mangoes go? The mango sounds fire right now.
It's mango season.
It's
right
mango
now.
season. That's why. But where did all the butterflies go? Drop September 5th. You guys are about to hit the road once again. Summer school, back on Warped, and then back with Blink.
Yes, sir.
So are you guys gonna be playing this album? Are you guys what are you guys planning for these upcoming tours?
We got a lot coming up. We're just trying to make the shows as lit as possible, and I think that Warped Tour especially is helping set the tone for that. Like we want moshing, we want crowd surfing, we want people to be going hard, taking care of each other for sure, but also going hard. And like this is, I think the way you experience a BSD show is just as expressive as it is for us to play it.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
want them to get that fever.
I'm excited for also these new songs because we kind of created what were the 3 buckets: sexy, fast, and driving.
Yeah. Or heavy driving.
Heavy driving. You know, they're you know. But point is, those are kind of like the inner genres of the album, and we kind of explored. Sexy was a new one for us because it was like, you know, we've always been sexy, but now we're making
what's wrong
sexy
with
music.
being
What's
sexy?
wrong with being sexy? But no, this is, if you've never watched Spinal Tap, go watch Spinal Tap. Turn this off and go watch Spinal Tap. But I honestly, it taps into a new side of our sound that we haven't really played live, and I'm excited to see how that translates to our live audience that know us for like our crazy shows. And I think it's a challenge for us too. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah, we just learned how to be sexy.
Yeah, we're figuring it out. We watched Spinal Tap, and they said it's like a tutorial.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for uniting with me. Thank you for letting me come into your space. You guys be sure to check out Beauty School Dropout, new album September 5th, and catch them on Warped Tour. I'll be at the Long Beach one, so I'll catch you guys there.
See you there.
Thanks for watching on Punkvideosrock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.